Hello, guys. International football's back. And England games normally, and qualifiers especially, not that exciting, nothing to write home about. But you know what? They did all right this time around. Let's talk about it. This is the Football Diary podcast. Hey, guys. Thanks for joining us. I'm with Myles today. As normal, good to see you, man. What did you reckon to the England games then? Quite fun, really, weren't they? They were pretty decent watch.
Eventually, yeah. The first one took a bit of time to get into. First half was pretty poor. And the second one was kind of similar. But obviously, can't really complain too much with 2 4-0 wins, can you?
Absolutely,
2 clean sheets, 8 goals. It's good.
Yeah. I think the first game was always going to be difficult against Hungary because the environment was pretty hostile. And we'll touch on that first, actually. The England players weren't made to feel particularly welcome, to put it lightly. It was outright abuse and racism at its core, essentially. Now, these fans have been banned from stadiums by FIFA. Or is it UEFA? It's UEFA, isn't it? Yeah, this was a FIFA event as a qualifier, so they were allowed in. So that weird loophole has meant this kind of thing has happened, which is, it's bizarre and it's disgusting to watch. But what could happen from this? Because they keep doing it. What do you do?
Yeah. It's got to lead to even more extreme punishment, though. I heard someone saying that it's the same as if you were under investigation for criminal activity and then committed the same offence again during that, then the punishment would be worse. So they've got a ban pending, and then this was what they did when they were allowed to get into the stadium. It's worth mentioning that obviously it's a minority of fans, but it was a big minority, and it was very clear who was doing it. It's a group all wearing the same colour. It's an organised thing. It wasn't off the cuff, couple of people being silly. This was something that their fans had planned. So that's disgraceful. When Sterling scores and takes his shirt off and has a message of memorial on his shirt, and you're throwing drinks at him, just the idiocy and the lack of human decency on display is horrible.
Yeah, I think the lack of culture from the Hungarian fans generally has been on show, hasn't it? But you can just tell from the reaction of that. You say relatively small section of the crowd. I thought it looked like a huge amount, a good sort of 20% of everybody that was there, causing that much abuse towards one player initially was quite frightening to see, I think, in some ways, because we're quite sheltered from it. And I know England's got its own problems culturally as well, but on that kind of scale, I don't think so. And I'd hope that if that was England fans, that they would have heavy punishment for it. But so far, it doesn't look like anything's going to change an awful lot for Hungary, does it?
Yeah, I'm not so sure. To be honest, I think Southgate made a really good point. And I was going to say it to you then, you're right. Culturally, they just seem so backwards. But at the same time, it wasn't that long ago that Saka, Sancho and Rashford were subject to horrible levels of abuse from English fans. So Southgate said that he thinks we need to get our own camp in order first as well. And I completely agree with that. But this is a very visible setting. It's on the pitch. That's broadcast globally. So it has to be dealt with accordingly. I do think it's difficult to police it so heavily and say, right, ban fans, ban them, when you're not doing that to the England fans who were abusing England players too. Just because it wasn't in the stadium doesn't make it any easier to deal with for those players, I guarantee. And I thought that England dealt with it in really good spirits on the pitch. I mean, it spurred them on, definitely. They went on and battered them. And I think the way that people like Rice and Grealish reacted made me laugh a little bit, I'll be honest, when they're picking up the cups and drinking it.
Yeah.
But the main thing was that England let the football do the talking for them. It's horrible to see. It doesn't seem like racism is going anywhere from football, despite all the campaign and the work. And I feel for those players that step out on the pitch and have to put up with that. Because if I went into my workplace and was subject to that kind of abuse, it would be an awful environment. It wouldn't be tolerated. But for them, it still is. And it's unacceptable.
It's sad, and I think for English fans, like I say, we're quite sheltered from it generally. It is a bit of a shock to the system. But do you know what? Those players were the whole second half pretty much sticking a middle finger to the whole of them, like you say, with their football. And that defiance that they showed, like it wasn't going to affect them at all. And it didn't. The football definitely did the talking. And to see the way they just celebrated each goal with, like you say, defiance right in front of their fans, the same ones that were sort of throwing cups at Sterling not so long ago before that, was quite a proud moment, I think, for English fans. It's good to see.
And the same ones that the Hungary players went and applauded at the end of the game.
Bizarrely, yeah.
I mean, they chose not to take the knee at the start of the game, which obviously is always disappointing. Can't really criticise, well, of course you can criticise the fans for booing it, but it's hard to do that from an England standpoint when England were getting booed at Wembley for doing exactly the same thing too. But the fact that the Hungary players went afterwards and clapped the fans, I just think, yeah, all right, they've paid their money to go and watch football. But when you've seen that kind of behaviour, you need to make a stand on the pitch as well to say, don't care whether you are fans or not. That is not acceptable. That really disappointed me, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it was almost as if they were supporting the fans for the actions they took. And I don't think that was the intention. But I'd like to think, again, if that was at Wembley and that much abuse was being thrown at opposition fans, especially of a racial nature, that England's players wouldn't go and applaud the fans, especially in the same sort of area of the stadium as well. You knew where the abuse was coming in from, but different cultural expectations, really, isn't it? So it's a learn for England's players, and they dealt with it really well. So the first half against Hungary was really frustrating. It's a dull one to watch, and I was hoping and sort of they would see that the England of the Euros come through, and we kind of did. I don't know if that was because of the abuse they faced, but they played some decent football.
In the second half, they woke up a lot, and I think the key to that was Grealish and Mount linking up very well. I thought Grealish had a fantastic game. I thought he was England's best player by a distance. And to be honest, could have left the evening with about 4 or 5 assists if their finishing had been stronger. I think the encouraging thing for England is Harry Kane doesn't really look 100% fit and doesn't look in the best form, but he's still got 2 goals across these games. Now, if an out-of-form Kane is still going to score you a goal a game, fantastic. But I think we can all agree it was not a very good Harry Kane performance. He could have comfortably scored 4 goals in that game. Now, Galassi is a good keeper, although he didn't show it at times in that game. But I really thought Kane let him off a few times, just hitting it straight at him, really on one-on-ones that you'd put anything on Kane scoring. But Grealish and Mount just kept finding him, and Sterling as well, to be fair. I thought their interplay between the 3 of them, I mean, it shows when they finally got to the byline and put the ball back, that's where the first goal comes from. When Grealish works his way into the box and cuts the ball back, that's where Rice's goal comes from. So they've got the ability to do that. They just weren't really venturing that far forward in the first half, it felt.
No, maybe it's just a fear of losing more than anything, or fear of some kind of drop in performance, because, I mean, that's been the nature of England internationals for a long time, hasn't it? But post Euro 2020, you'd like to think that the reaction from England fans would be different as long as the performance was there. And do you know what? I think they realised that eventually. I reckon that supporting cast of those 3 behind Harry Kane will probably be the first choice now, Sterling, Mount and Grealish, because their interplay was really well. They could change positions quite easily, couldn't they, between them? And a constant threat as well. They actually made Kane look a lot better, I thought.
And I think it was really telling that he made 11 changes for the second game, ready for the Poland game. It looks like that 11 that he played against Hungary is the first 11 now. And that's fantastic to me. I think Rice and Phillips have earned their place ahead of Henderson, definitely. They look brilliant together. And Mason Mount is fantastic. Criminally underrated, really. And to be fair, by me for a long time as well. But you really see what he brings. He's so dynamic. He's got such good attacking intent. He's a very intelligent footballer. So I really like seeing him play for England. And I think seeing him play with Grealish. Finally, it took Grealish moving to Man City to realise, oh, wait, him and Sterling can play together. It's absolutely typical that he starts games, now he's left Villa. But fair play to the guy. I thought he was England's best player by some distance, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the performances of the front players was encouraging. But, I mean, against Andorra, we kind of expected there to be goals. They were frustrated for a while, weren't they? But when the floodgates opened with this new-look team via Jesse Lingard to begin with, which was great to see. The guy plays with absolute joy on his face. It was actually so easy for England in the end. And I think that's where my view on qualifiers especially has always been quite negative, is that we have to play the likes of Andorra because... what's the point? It's a given almost. I'm sure they've caused a few team scares in the past, but this was no real surprise. It was 81% possession or something like that. It was not difficult for England, really, was it? But good to see so many of the second string perform so well.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise was that Bamford didn't get on the score sheet. I think if he's wearing a Leeds shirt, he scores a couple of goals in that game. I don't think he had a particularly good debut. Which is a shame for him because I think he earned his place. there's going to be a lot of competition for the kind of backup to Harry Kane sort of striker role come the World Cup. I'm sure we'll touch on that later. So this was a really big chance for Bamford. And look, he wasn't awful, I suppose, but he should have buried a couple of his chances, really. And again, it took until the second half when some changes happened, when Grealish came on, when Kane came on, for them to really wake up, it felt like. But, like you say, it's just fantastic seeing Lingard, isn't it? Like, he's absolutely so yeah, he's brilliant. He's so likeable. And I'm gutted that we probably won't see very much of him this season. If we're honest, he's not going to get into that United team very often. I know it's a long season, you're in a lot of competitions, but Lingard's not going to feature very much, despite what Solskjaer says. I wish he'd gone elsewhere, because I love watching Lingard play. He's another one. He's dynamic. He loves getting forward. He's just energetic, and he just plays with a smile on his face. I love that. It's brilliant. I'm really happy for Lingard.
I think Gareth Southgate sees the value of him in the squad, necessarily not the team, but I think Solskjaer will see that value soon. I think when he takes his chance at United, he will make an impression. I really do. And I think he'll get chances. The League Cup's always there for fringe players, but I think he'll play a more prominent role than that. And it's weird how he has to prove himself with the national team to get in the Man United side. It's normally the opposite of that, the way it works. But he's such a Southgate favourite, I think. He knows what he brings to the starting 11. He's such a dynamic player, isn't he? And again, Andorra is not exactly the benchmark for any kind of player to gauge their progress. But I thought he got into loads of space. I thought his finishing was great. I thought his interplay with the players around him. He seemed like a senior player who'd been there a while.
Definitely.
And there were quite a few novices, like you say, like Patrick Bamford, for example. Jude Bellingham was still a relative novice, but he looked fantastic. And I think having someone like Lingard around him really elevated his game. So the Lingard effect, I think, is something that both England and United can benefit from, you know?
Yeah. I think the midfield was really interesting in this game for a lot of reasons. Obviously, we finally sort of saw what's been talked about for ages in the idea of Trent playing in midfield. And it didn't work, really. He's such a good footballer that it seems a waste to kind of do that. Southgate tried his hardest, didn't he? He started the game with James, Trent and Trippier on the pitch. When you right backs are so good, you've got to play two of them out of position. I think that's a real statement that at some point Southgate's just got to make the hard decision and go, you're my right back. That's it. I really think one of them should step up now and be the right back. I think we probably will have one more tournament with Kyle Walker, and I hope so, because he's phenomenal. I think he's probably one of the best fullbacks in world football, Kyle Walker. I think he's absolutely outstanding. So I think it's got to be him first, but I don't think Trent playing in midfield is the answer to getting them all in the squad. I think it is going to be Reece James that ends up missing out more long term, which is a real shame, because he's brilliant too. And we've got Wan-Bissaka who can't get in a squad too, but playing one of them at left back and one in centre mid didn't work. But Bellingham really did. Bellingham was brilliant. A little bit too much energy sometimes. He kind of got in some of the England players' ways almost, because he just wanted to do everything. But the amount of times he just picked the ball up and beat a man, because they just expect a midfielder who's not very confident at that sort of age to just play it sideways. And he was like, all right, I'll just go past you. I thought he was brilliant. Really, really mature performance.
I think that's the key. It's maturity, because he's 18. You forget that sometimes, but the level he's reached that's joining Dortmund has been unrecognisable for a player his age. I think he was good at Birmingham. He was on the scout radars of a lot of teams, including Man United, to be fair.
Yeah, I remember.
But the way he's just elevated himself from a maturity and composure point of view, he's so comfortable on the ball. He's going to be the team, I think, that Southgate builds his midfield around going forwards. I think once this generation of slightly older midfielders goes, and Henderson, for example, is not in the picture anymore, Bellingham will be the one who's central to that midfield, because he's just so much better than anything we've had, isn't it? Especially with his years. He's only 18.
I wonder who he replaces out of Rice and Phillips, though, because they seem to have a great partnership, and they're young too, really. I think they'll be playing for England for a long time. The good thing is, going into the Euros, everyone would have said the weakest part of England's team is the centre of midfield. They don't have good midfielders. Rice and Phillips have proved their worth in that role, and Bellingham looks like he's coming through and can be just as good, which is fantastic. So I'm glad of that. I want to mention one player quickly. Tyrone Mings has 14 England caps now, 12 clean sheets in that time. That is
I didn't even know that. That's incredible. Yeah, to be fair, it was amazing. A good game. Good game for him and Connor Cody to play in, really, because they were quite well protected. And Sam Johnston as well, to be fair. No threat to them, as was there.
Connor Cody tried to score an overhead kick at one point. That is
Why not?
my favourite thing from the internationals. I can't believe we've not mentioned that already. We should have started the show with that. Connor Cody nearly scored an overhead kick. Brilliant.
That's a pretty big headline. If it had gone in, mate, maybe it'd be a big story. But no,
I think you would have been flag your side.
It was a comfortable one, I think, for them to play, and Sam Johnstone as well.
Yeah,
I think it was a nice kind of ease into the team, really, because it looks like there'll be fixtures for the foreseeable as well. So it begs the question, England squads going into the World Cup then? I know it's still a way off, but it's not really when you think about it. It's it's going to fly. The way the last 18 months through COVID has gone by, time is now a weird element that seems to just fly by us, isn't it? So the World Cup will come around pretty quickly. Anybody you can see based on the Premier League season as it is and the way it pans out in the future for this season, and also these internationals that we've seen so far, that you think will be like a shoe-in for the squad or has forced their way into Reckonham?
The interesting one, like I say, is up front, who plays support to Kane. Kane's going to play every single game. As long as he's fit, Kane will play. And rightfully so, because like I said, he wasn't in good form, but he scored 2 goals. So I'll take that. Then you want 1 or 2 to be back up to him. And with that, I think you've got Calvert-Lewin, Bamford in this squad. We've seen Watkins in squads before, maybe Rashford down the middle. I also think Ings has got to get in that conversation soon. But then you don't know who else could come through. Callum Wilson could have a great season again and get himself in the conversation. So I think that will be a really interesting position. I can't see him taking all 4 right backs. So that's got to be a decision to be made at some point. And then I think the other one that's interesting is if Spurs pick up form again, do we start looking at the likes of Eric Dyer and Dele Alli again? Now, I don't think so with Eric Dyer in particular, but Southgate clearly likes those 2. They've been in a lot of his squads before, and if they can find form in the Premier League, then it's got to be worth a consideration. The same way that Lingard got back in the conversation. So you never know, really. There's a few that I'm looking forward to seeing and seeing whether they can impress enough to make that step. I'm also interested to see if Phil Foden has enough game time this season at Man City with Grealish arriving.
True. I think, well, with him and Sterling as well, there's a lot of competition for places at City that might hamper England, but also might benefit the likes of Saka, who's actually now become almost the first choice sort of go-to for Southgate. And I've got to say, the fans' reaction to him so far this season, as he's gone to away games, has been lovely. It really has. So again, England fans of old would have happily booed, I think, anyone who missed the penalty. But no, great reaction for him.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's still some other young players that we've got to look out for. Greenwood, obviously. Don't know what happened with him at Man United this season with Sancho and Ronaldo arriving, but he looked like he started the season really well. So maybe he'll get himself in the conversation again with Southgate. There's a lot of players to look out for. And whether the sort of mainstays maintain their form. Can you see Jordan Henderson making the next squad, really? I think that will depend on if we get any numbers in midfield come through. Can you see Kyle Walker definitely being there? Can you see Trippier definitely being there? The older ones that have been around for a bit longer might start to rotate out with some of the players that are coming through. So I am really interested to see what Southgate does next, to be honest.
Yeah. I think Jesse Lingard's an interesting one because where he plays in terms of which club, we don't know. I can see him probably wanting a loan move maybe in January just to get game time. It will depend how much Solskjaer uses him, but he's definitely an interesting prospect off the bench. But we've got so many players in those positions. It's difficult to shoehorn them all in, isn't it? Who kind of misses the cut if he goes, you know?
I think the Euros was a sign that Lingard, even when he was playing for West Ham and playing so well, has fallen a bit too far down the pecking order. If everyone's fit, he probably doesn't make this squad, let's be honest. And I think with a season of him probably not playing that much football, I can't imagine he'll get the nod, which is a shame because I really like Jesse Lingard. I really want him to come to Villa, if I'm honest, because I think we really need a player like that. I think we definitely need a number 10. I think he'd fit the profile brilliantly. But I don't think Lingard will make it. I genuinely think we'd be more likely to see Dele Alli than Lingard. And I don't think we'll see it, but I can see Ali squeezing his way back in by the end of the season if he hits some form.
Well, interestingly, Ali's been playing deeper for Spurs than he has otherwise been since he's been there. So, again, if he drops deeper in midfield, you've got Rice and Phillips currently playing the slightly deeper roles. Does he dislodge one of those, or does Southgate play him further forward like he used to play?
He needs to find his place, Ali, because while Kane was out, he was playing as basically a false 9. Yeah. And now Kane's back, he drops deeper again. So I want someone to work Dele Alli out because I stand by the fact that I think naturally he's a very, very good footballer.
Quality.
And I think he could bring a lot to our squad. I think it says a lot that Mourinho touched on it in the All or Nothing documentary, that one of the only pieces of advice he got from Ferguson was sign Dele Alli. He's fantastic. Yeah. That's a flipping good endorsement, isn't it? And I'd love to see that come to fruition, because I really like Dele Alli personally. I think he's a very, very good footballer. So we'll see. I think he could knock on the door again. Ward-Prowse will probably be there or thereabouts again if we're looking for competition in midfield.
Yeah,
it's a nice problem to have, to be considering all these players, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think goalkeeper's pretty set, isn't it?
I think so.
I don't know if Nick Pope's maybe lost his place in the squad now, with Ramsdale forcing his way into the Arsenal team potentially, because they're not having a great season. His value alone sort of made people sit up and notice him, hasn't it? But Johnston as well, I'm not sure if he's a regular fixture in the England squad now. Dean Henderson's not played yet for United because of COVID. So there's a few sort of question marks over goalkeeper. But I think it's kind of made Pickford the outright number one now, the way the Euros went. And the situation since then. Yeah,
I was so scared about Pickford going into the Euros. I absolutely loved it. I mean, he was brilliant. Yeah. The goalkeeping three is picked for the World Cup already, as long as everyone's fit. It's going to be Pickford, Henderson and Pope, if they're all fit, definitely. Can't see anyone getting in the way of that.
So you don't think Arsenal's valuation of Ramsdale is accurate then?
No. I don't think it's accurate, but also Arsenal will say that that's one they've brought for the future. So I don't think he'll be ready for England anytime soon. I've not seen anything about Ramsdale that makes me think he's good enough. We talked about it with Ben White, how Arsenal signed Ben White because he's good with the ball at his feet. Okay, I'd expect him to be good with the ball at his feet. I'd expect him to defend as well. Ramsdale's the same. Oh, his distribution's really good. Okay, but I don't really see him save shots. And that's quite a fundamental of being a goalkeeper. We've seen that with Kepa. If you don't save shots, then your valuation might be a bit skewed. So yeah, I don't think Ramsdale will be in the England squad come the World Cup, to be honest. I'm prepared to eat my words, but I think those are fairly straightforward picks.
I'm inclined to agree.
Pope's always injured.
Yeah, which is a shame because he's naturally one of the best shot stoppers we've got.
Oh, yeah, brilliant.
I think the curse of Arsenal might kick into Ben White as well, because he looked like he was forcing himself into contention. But if he carries on with that horror show of a backline for Arsenal when he does actually come back again, it could hamper his chances massively, couldn't it?
Somehow Saka still gets in, I suppose, because he's just brilliant. But yeah, there's enough players in those positions. I think with the likes of Stones, Maguire, Mings, Cody. I really want to see Konsa get a chance. If Villa can have the same sort of season as they did last season defensively and Konsa doesn't get a call up, that would be an absolute travesty. I'm definitely forgetting other players that could be within a call as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think, like you say, this is one of them positions that I think is fairly settled in Southgate's mind, and that's the most important thing. I think he's got those players that he trusts now. Yeah. Mings is definitely up there because of his obvious talent. He's left-footed as well. Cody's definitely there. I think as a partnership, them two work quite nicely.
Like those two, man. They're funny together. Yeah,
I think so. They, again, like with Lingard, they play with a bit of a smile on the face, to be honest. I think that's nice to see. And they're trustworthy, isn't it, in what they do. They're pretty good defenders all round and a real threat from set pieces as well, which is good.
Yeah, definitely.
The right back situation, again, you've got to look forward to probably a year's time and think this time next year when the new season starts for the next time around, is Kyle Walker going to be first choice for Man City? Probably not. Is Kieran Trippier going to still beat Atletico Madrid? Who knows? I worry more for Trent Alexander-Arnold. I really do, because I just don't think he's in Southgate's thoughts. I think Reece James is the one. Ironically, you said the opposite. But I think Reece James is the one who's probably played himself into starting for him. I think he's a dependable, threatening sort of player to have on that side.
I think the fact that Trent was in the Euro squad until he got that injury, and the fact that against Andorra they tried him in another position and then moved him back out to right back for a while as well. I think he is so versatile. I think Southgate will start to feel like he can't not play him. And depending on what kind of season he has for Liverpool this season, that's all of it, really. If Liverpool win the league this year or go far in the Champions League or something, I'm sure Alexander-Arnold would be a big part of that. And therefore, it's a different question. But I'm still holding this tiny little bit of hope that at some point he goes, let me just give Wan-Bissaka a call up, because he deserves it. He does. I think he's brilliant. Yeah. But yeah, we've talked about it so many times in this podcast. It's a wonderful problem to have. But I just hope Southgate doesn't kind of give in to the pressure of just going, I'll take everyone, because I don't like that.
That's the problem if he does call it Wan-Bissaka and he makes an impact for England. Like, then what? A conundrum of 5 right backs. I mean, there's so many we've not even mentioned that haven't ever been picked, you know?
With their age profile, though, really, you say 5 right backs. If you call Wan-Bissaka up, it just becomes 3. Trippier and Walker move on because of their age profile, and you just have Wan-Bissaka, James, and Trent on rotation.
Yeah.
Now, the worry is you don't call Wan-Bissaka up, Walker and Trippier retire, and then let's say Alexander-Arnold picks up another serious injury before the tournament. You've lost someone of the quality of Wan-Bissaka to go, and he's phenomenal. Now, all right, you've still got Matty Cash, Max Aarons. There's still players that can fill in that position, but you'd want Wan-Bissaka, surely. He's brilliant.
I just think as a defender, he's one of the best at stopping people getting past him. And I think that's such an asset to have. And I'm sure we've mentioned this in the past about England options as well. To have that in your locker as well as an attacking fullback is great versatility, isn't it? Maybe Southgate will come to realise that eventually, but he doesn't play particularly defensive right backs, does he? That's the question.
No, it's going to be too late, isn't it? He's going to it's DR Congo.
Yeah, that's it. I think he'll definitely look for international football, won't he? Especially if United are picking him on the regular, which they are. So
he deserves it.
I think so. On the left side, though, I think Shaw's been such a good player for club and country. I think Ben Chilwell's struggling to get in the Chelsea team, isn't he? I think Marcos Alonso kind of taken that spot for the time being. But Shaw to Maguire for a goal seems like a regular thing I'm going to be cheering this season for both club and country, doesn't it? They're a good sort of duo. His crossing is fantastic.
Oh, it was a lovely corner. His set pieces have come along so far. I think I said it to you before that I think the only reason Shaw started taking United's corners were for them to get ready for Tellez to come into the side. Because Tellez is a set piece taker. And obviously they were trying to work out their tactical shape with what do we do if our left back takes our corners. Then Shaw became undroppable and really good at corners. So fair play to him. I'm really happy to see Luke Shaw there as well. He's another one who's had an interesting career and he's really likable. So it's great. Yeah, this side.
I think when you talk about this England squad now, there's so much good favour for them from the public, isn't there? Not just because of the Euros and how far we got and how well we did, but their whole reaction to everything that's been thrown at them. And they've had a lot thrown at them, haven't they? A lot of abuse, a lot of negativity, and they've just dealt with it in such a professional and mature manner. It's quite a nice, proud feeling to see them representing your country, really. The only thing that annoys me is there's a section of England fans that still boo taking the knee. They still boo other countries and their national anthems, and they're no better than the Hungarians in some ways, you know? I think that's a bit disappointing. But the team itself couldn't do more, really, to sort of make itself appeal to the wider public. And how many times have we had to say that in the past about England since, in our lifetimes anyway? Not very many.
If they win on Wednesday, they're pretty much through.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's nice to have that wrapped up early. It's not confirmed, obviously, but that would be a massive step towards it. I can't see anyone catching us at that point. So it's 5-5. Only one of the team have got that so far. So, and to pick yourself up after the disappointment of the summer in quite the fashion it was, like you say, it's brilliant. It's easy to get behind that. So yeah, really happy with England.
Yeah, really decent. I think Poland's away as well. So again, another sort of tough test for them. How many fans there will be in the stadium for Poland? I'm not sure. Whether it would be the same. Sorry?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know either, actually. It's a good question.
I'm pretty sure English fans still aren't allowed to travel to those places. So it'll be a full house of Poland, maybe. So another test of their mental strength, really, more than anything. But I think they'll be fine. But
surely, speaking of people travelling from England, we've got to touch on what happened last night and how bizarre that was.
Do you know what? I almost forgot about that. But we were talking about it, weren't we? How you were like, have you seen what's gone on in the Brazil-Argentina game? And I could not believe what I was reading. What was it, 5 minutes into the game?
Yeah.
Health officials from Brazil run onto the pitch to stop the game because 3 English-based Argentina players shouldn't have been playing in their eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's 4 in the squad and 3 on the pitch. Yeah. Yeah. It was ridiculous. That honestly, the level of idiocy in all of this and the fact that it's clearly a massive publicity stunt. Now, what they're saying isn't wrong. I think we would agree on this. It is ridiculous that players are traveling from somewhere that is a red zone in one country to the other during this time, and they just are allowed to because they're footballers. They should follow exactly the same rules as everyone else. It's silly, but special dispensation's been granted for some reason through various authorities. But I think this was just a point that football is not the authority in the world. And I quite like that. However, dealt with shockingly badly. The argument was they tried to get them before the game started, but the changing rooms were locked. Okay, so why didn't you just stand outside the changing room and wait for them to come out before they got onto the pitch?
I think that's the
Clearly,
thing.
they wanted attention for this, didn't they?
It was the only explanation because they let the game start, like you said. They didn't stop it behind the scenes at any point.
Yeah.
They must have been quite aware that the team was on its way. Quite aware. You know, it wasn't like a hidden secret or anything. The venue was well known. And yet the whistle blew. 5 minutes in, they made this huge show about it. Yeah, it's a farce.
That's what makes me laugh. If you say it wasn't a secret that the game was being held, well, they said that one of the reasons behind doing this was because Emi Martinez, Emi Buendia, Romero and Lo Celso from Spurs didn't declare that they'd been in England within the last 2 weeks. Now, these are international footballers playing in the Premier League. It's quite easy to know that they were in England within the last couple of weeks because they've been playing. So hilarious in that area. Also, isn't it so typical of football to miss out on this really easy bit of admin to get this sorted? That's really funny. And second of all, third of all, I should say, the funniest thing is they waited 5 minutes. Do you think they were like, we'll see how the game pans out for a bit, and if Argentina look on top, then we'll definitely make a move? Or why 5 minutes in? Why let the game kick off?
I know. Maybe they thought the players weren't there and they didn't recognise them, and then they saw, hang on a second, isn't that them fellas from the Premier League? And thought, we can't have this. Let's run onto the pitch. We've got to stop it, guys. We've got to stop it. But either way, it's just so comically amateur, isn't it? It's just, you've got to laugh. I'm sure the Brazil and Argentina players found it less funny. I think Messi's face told a picture, didn't it? He was pretty fuming. It's a tasty game. Brazil, Argentina. Everyone must have been well up for that.
It is. But for any Villa fans worrying, I have seen, I can confirm via various things on Twitter that Emi Buendia and Emi Martinez have been released. So our boys are free. They're no longer locked up. It's all good. They weren't changed. But it's a joke.
You can sleep another day, mate. You can sleep another day. They're fine.
And just quickly worth mentioning that, all right, pretty boring, but Italy drew 2 games so far, which means that they now hold the record for the longest ever unbeaten run in men's international football. That's impressive. Phenomenal. 3 years since they lost a game.
It's phenomenal, but the game against Switzerland, they'd have hoped to get more than a draw out of that. Come on, because Switzerland are knocking on the door for top spot, you know, and there's like a lot of jeopardy in the qualifiers this time, because if you don't finish top, there's very few that will get a playoff. So they've got to finish top, really. Otherwise, that means nothing.
They'll be absolutely fine.
They will be fine, yeah, I agree. Anyway, we've got England, Poland again on Wednesday, haven't we? And then it's back to Premier League on Saturday. I think most teams play on Saturday as well. So
Ronaldo's debut.
I know, God, man, I can't wait. It's going to be absolutely buzzing at Old Trafford. It really is.
Quite funny, by the way, that he picked up a yellow card and is suspended for the next Portugal game, so got to come back to England early.
Funny that.
I wonder if he planned that a little bit. Oh, and also he broke Ali Dyer's record as well, worth mentioning. He's now the leading scorer in men's international football too. That's incredible too.
He's had a bloody good week when you put it like that, hasn't he?
Yeah, it was done in such Ronaldo style as well. To miss a penalty, but then to score 2 brilliant headers, including a last-minute winner. That's so Ronaldo.
Drama. Do you think it was unnecessary drama, or do you think he did it on purpose?
He nearly got himself sent off as well, didn't he? Did he slap someone in the face?
Yeah, well, it just got the better of him, didn't it? The occasion. I think it felt the whole game. I think that goal had to come at some point. Otherwise, he built it up so much. But no, congratulations to Ronaldo. Until then, mate. Yeah, he is. But until then, enjoy the football. Premier League, I can't wait for it to be back. As much as I've quite enjoyed the internationals this time, Premier League's where it's at, isn't it?
I'm ready.
Yeah, nice one, mate. Well, take care. Thank you guys for watching. Join us on the Football Diary podcast again soon. Hit subscribe if you can as well. We'd love you to come back and see more of our content if you enjoy this. Thank you for watching, mate. See you later.
See ya.